Stop for a moment and think about what the perfect yard actually costs you. Not what it looks like. What it costs. Every Saturday morning from April through October, the mower comes out. You fuel it, you start it, you push or ride it across the same ground you mowed 7 days ago. 2 hours, sometimes 3, every single week. Then the watering. The average American family uses roughly 30% of all the water they consume outdoors, the majority going directly onto the lawn. In the Western United States, that number climbs to 60%. 60% of your entire household water bill on grass. Then the fertilizer runs, the weed killer applications, the grub treatments, the overseeding in fall, the aeration, the edging. The blower runs after every mow. And at the end of all of it, after the hours and the water bills and the chemical costs and the fuel, what do you have? Grass. The same grass that was there last week. That will need to be cut again next week. That supports almost no wildlife, feeds almost no pollinators, grows almost no food. A recent report from Yardzen, one of the largest landscape design companies in the United States, found that traditional lawn square footage dropped 25% year over year in 2026. Not by accident, not because of drought restrictions alone, because a growing number of homeowners looked at the math and decided the perfect yard was not worth the price. And here's the question this video is going to answer. If the perfect lawn is dying, and the data says it is, what is replacing it? And how do you make the transition without your yard looking like the abandoned lot at the end of the street? Stay with me. Because what is taking the place of the perfect lawn costs less, produces more, supports the land around it, and looks better 12 months out of the year than a monoculture of grass ever did. And I am going to show you exactly how to do it. Let me show you the full cost of the perfect lawn. Not just the obvious costs, all of them. The time cost. The average American spends 70 hours per year on lawn care. 70 hours. That is nearly 2 full working weeks every single year, spent maintaining a surface that produces nothing edible, nothing medicinal, and nothing that feeds the ecosystem around it. Over a 20-year period of homeownership, that is 1,400 hours, 35 40-hour work weeks, almost 9 months of full-time labor. Given back to grass, the money cost. Americans collectively spend $188.8 billion per year on lawn care and landscaping. From LawnStarter's 2026 industry statistics, that makes the U.S. lawn care industry larger than the GDP of many countries. At a household level, the average American homeowner spends between $1,200 and $1,500 per year on lawn maintenance, mowing, fertilizing, weed control, irrigation, and equipment upkeep. That is a subscription. A recurring, mandatory annual subscription paid to an industry whose product you cannot eat, cannot sell, and cannot harvest. The water cost. About 30% of the water an average American family consumes is used outdoors, the majority going to lawns, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. In the western United States, outdoor water use climbs to an average of 60% per family. The perfect lawn was designed for a climate that no longer reliably exists in many parts of the country. The ecological cost. Entomologist Doug Tallamy at the University of Delaware has described conventional grass lawns as biological deserts. His research shows that a standard lawn monoculture supports almost no native insect life, almost no pollinator activity, and almost no bird feeding habitat, because the non-native grass species that make up most American lawns evolved in entirely different ecosystems. Tallamy's Homegrown National Park initiative is calling for 20 million acres of habitat restoration on what is currently U.S. lawn. Monarch butterfly populations have been on a steady documented decline. Native bee populations face ongoing habitat pressure. Between 40 and 60 million acres of American lawn, the majority in low biodiversity grass monoculture, is part of that story. The identity cost. And this is the one nobody in the lawn care industry wants you to think about. The perfect lawn was never really about the grass. It was about a signal, a status symbol, a way of saying, I am keeping up, I am in control, I belong here. And for decades, that signal was powerful enough to justify every hour and every dollar spent maintaining it. But in 2026, perfect green lawns no longer dominate curb appeal the way they once did. The yard that signals something in 2026 is not the one with the sharpest edges and the most uniform green. It is the one that is doing something. The one that is producing food, supporting pollinators, building soil, working with the land instead of imposing a template on top of it. That shift is not a fringe movement. It is a measurable, documented, accelerating cultural transition. To understand why the perfect lawn is dying in 2026, you have to understand where it came from. The closely cropped grass lawn was not an American invention. It was an English aristocratic invention, introduced by landscape designers in England and France in the 1700s as a way of signaling wealth. The reason is simple. Only the very wealthy could afford to dedicate acres of productive land to something purely decorative, and only the very wealthy had the servants required to maintain it by hand. The lawn was designed from its very origin as a display of economic surplus. It crossed the Atlantic and arrived in American culture progressively through the 19th century. But it was not truly democratized until after World War II, when two specific things happened simultaneously. The first was the mass production of the rotary lawnmower. What had previously required a team of groundskeepers was suddenly achievable by a single homeowner on a Saturday morning. The second was the suburban housing boom. Millions of new homes built on formerly agricultural land, each with a patch of grass in the front and back, each in a neighborhood where the social pressure to maintain that grass was immediate, visible, and daily. An entire industry formed around that pressure. Seed companies, fertilizer manufacturers, pesticide producers, irrigation suppliers, lawn equipment manufacturers. What that industry needed to sustain itself was a standard of perfection that was just barely achievable enough to keep people trying, and just barely out of reach enough to keep them buying. Weeds were not a natural problem. They were a marketed problem. Brown patches were not a personal failure. They were a sales opportunity. The perfect lawn was the product. The lawn care industry was the subscription service. And for about 70 years, from roughly the 1950s to the 2020s, it worked. Then something gave. Here is what the 2026 data actually shows. A recent report from Yardzen observed that traditional lawn square footage dropped 25% year over year in favor of more flexible layered systems. That is not a fringe preference. That is a quarter of American lawn space being converted in a single year. 28% of U.S. adults bought pollinator-friendly plants in 2024. 17% bought native plants, and those numbers are accelerating in 2026. The University of Minnesota Extension's Robin Trott has identified living landscapes as the dominant residential landscaping trend for 2026. Specifically citing native plants, layered planting structures, and biodiversity-supporting features. And the economics are not subtle. A 1,000 square foot section of conventional lawn, approximately $300 to $500 per year in maintenance costs, 5 to 7 hours per month of labor, and 6,000 to 10,000 gallons of water per growing season. The same 1,000 square feet converted to a layered native planting. Establishment cost of $200 to $400 one time, near zero ongoing maintenance after year 2, and rainfall-only irrigation in most U.S. climate zones after establishment. One is an annual subscription with no end date. The other is a one-time investment that gets easier every year. That is why the perfect lawn is dying. Not because people stopped caring about their yards, because they started caring about them differently. The perfect lawn is not being replaced by neglect. That is the fear most homeowners carry, that letting go of the standard means letting go of the yard entirely, that rewilded means overgrown, that low maintenance means abandoned. It does not mean that at all. Rewilding is a design approach that encourages biodiversity while still creating a beautiful garden. What is actually replacing the perfect lawn in 2026 is a set of specific intentional alternatives, each one solving a different version of the lawn problem. Replacement 1. Native plant gardens. Native plants are the foundation of the shift. Adapted to local conditions, they require little water beyond normal rainfall once established, resist local pests without chemical intervention, and provide the food sources, nectar, seeds, berries, that native insects and birds evolved alongside. The practical result? A yard that looks deliberately designed, changes with the seasons in ways grass never does, and requires a fraction of the ongoing maintenance of a lawn. In one documented yard transformation covered by ABC News, monarch butterflies appeared even in the early stages of the conversion, before the lawn was fully replaced. How to start? Replace one section of lawn at a time. Start with the area nearest a fence or border. Remove the grass using the sheet mulching method described in the next chapter. Plant native species that bloom in sequence through your growing season. Your state's Native Plant Society website will give you specific species recommendations for your climate zone. Replacement 2. Clover lawns. Clover stays green with minimal watering, fixes nitrogen in the soil naturally, eliminating the fertilizer cost entirely, and produces a continuous bloom that supports bees from spring through late autumn. It handles foot traffic well. It requires mowing once or twice a season at most, and it costs a fraction of grass seed per square foot to establish. How to start? Overseed directly into existing thin lawn at a rate of 2 ounces of Dutch white clover seed per 1,000 square feet in early spring or early fall. Clover establishes quickly and will crowd out weaker grass over 1 to 2 seasons. Zero soil preparation required. Replacement 3. Edible landscapes. This is the replacement that fits most naturally with everything else this channel covers. The same space currently growing grass, consuming water, fertilizer, and labor, producing nothing, can grow food. Fruit trees underplanted with herbs, berry bushes along fence lines, raised beds replacing sections of lawn, perennial vegetables, asparagus, artichoke, rhubarb, planted in borders that return every year without replanting. An edible landscape does not look like a vegetable garden. It looks like a garden, but it feeds you. And it is the most direct possible answer to the perfect lawn's fundamental problem. It does something. How to start? Identify the sunniest section of your current lawn. Minimum 6 hours of direct sun. Remove a 10 by 10 foot section of grass using the lasagna mulching method below. Start with a dwarf fruit tree as the centerpiece and perennial herbs as the underplanting. Year 2, expand the border outward. Replacement 4. Wildflower meadow. For larger properties or areas with poor soil, a wildflower meadow is the most dramatically beautiful and ecologically productive transition available. For a yard with at least 6 hours of sunlight per day, a native wildflower meadow enhances biodiversity by attracting birds, butterflies, and pollinators, while saving significant time and water compared to turf lawns. One practical note that separates a designed meadow from an abandoned lot. Maintain a clean mowed or defined edge between your wildflower zone and any remaining lawn or pathway. The edge signals intention. It tells everyone walking past, this was designed. Here is your complete transition framework, from perfect lawn to productive yard, one section at a time, with a plan. Step 1. The 25% rule. Do not try to replace your entire lawn this year. Replace 25% of it. The most successful yard transformations happen in phases. Choose the section you mow most resentfully, the corner that always browns out, the strip along the fence that needs edging every week. Start there. Step 2. Kill the grass correctly. Sheet mulching, also called lasagna mulching, is the most effective low-chemical method. Cover the section with overlapping sheets of plain cardboard. Wet it thoroughly. Layer 6 inches of compost and wood chips on top. The cardboard suppresses the grass, breaks down over one season, and the compost builds the soil below. No digging, no herbicide, no removal. Plant directly into the compost layer. Step 3. The 3-layer planting structure. Every productive replacement landscape uses 3 layers. A canopy layer, fruit trees, large shrubs, or ornamental trees that provide height and structure. A mid-layer, berry bushes, perennial flowers, medicinal herbs, and edible plants. A ground layer, clover, thyme, creeping native plants, or low wildflowers that cover the soil and prevent weed establishment. This 3-layer structure is why a designed, rewilded yard looks intentional and rich, rather than abandoned and overgrown. Step 4. Front-load the work. A conventional lawn requires maintenance every single week of the growing season. Forever. A well-designed replacement landscape requires significant attention in year 1. Watering new plants, pulling opportunistic weeds before they establish, filling gaps. In year 2, maintenance drops significantly as plants fill in. By year 3, most native or edible landscapes are largely self-sustaining. You are not eliminating maintenance. You are front-loading it and then watching it reduce year over year. Step 5. The edge rule. Whatever you transition, maintain a clean mode or defined edge between your transition zone and any remaining lawn or pathway. The edge signals intention. It is the single most important visual cue that separates a designed landscape from a neglected one. Clean edges cost you 20 minutes every few weeks and protect every other hour you have invested in the transition. Named resources: USDA plants. Database: plants.usda.gov. Identifies native plants for every U.S. county. Free Homegrown National Park. homegrownnationalpark.org. Doug Tallamy's plant lists and habitat maps. Your state's Native Plant Society. Local expertise, regional seed sources. Yard's End design tool. Free yard planning based on your climate zone. Go back to where we started. The mower coming out on a Saturday morning. The water bill, the fertilizer run, the chemical application, the edging, the blower, 70 hours a year. 35 working weeks over a lifetime of homeownership. For grass, I am not saying grass is the enemy. I am not saying every lawn should be ripped out tomorrow. A play area for children, a space for the dog, a surface for gathering. Those are real needs and grass serves them well. But the perfect lawn, the one that demands every inch be uniform, every edge be sharp, every weed be eliminated every week of every growing season. That standard is not a gardening philosophy. It is a marketing invention. Designed in the 1700s to signal aristocratic wealth. Industrialized in the 1950s to sell products. And maintained for 70 years by an industry whose business model requires that you never feel like you have succeeded. The 25% of homeowners converting their lawns in 2026 are not anti-lawn radicals. They are people who looked at what their yard was costing them in time, money, water, and ecological impact, and decided to ask a different question. Not, how do I maintain this? But, what do I want this land to do? Your land can grow food. It can support pollinators. It can build soil that gets richer every year instead of requiring inputs every year. It can produce something you can harvest, something you can share, something that will still be growing and producing a decade from now without a single bag of fertilizer or a single tank of fuel. That is what a garden actually is, not a carpet that needs vacuuming every week, a living system that works with you. If this video gave you something to think about or something to go outside and do this weekend, hit the like button. It helps more people find this information and more yards start doing something. Subscribe to this channel. We go deep into the plants. What grows, what heals, what feeds, and what the garden center label never told you. One forgotten method at a time. And tell me in the comments. One word, are you lawn or garden? Lawn, you are staying with what you have for now. Garden, you are ready to make the transition. Drop it below. I read everyone.